All right, spell lists. God, it's getting late. And we're still not there. Those 3 spell lists. Arcane, Divine, Primal. Each list provides a spell level, name, school of magic. Okay. So the good news is they're putting the schools here in the list, which I think is kind of necessary, if I'm being perfectly honest. Are they legitimately gonna, like... Oh, is this just the list of spells? Is that what this is? Okay, yeah, so this is just the list of spells. So I'm not gonna go through this. I don't want to, if I'm being perfectly honest. This is like, how many pages of spells? You know, I'm not gonna go through all this because I'm bored. Does this mean that, like, they're probably gonna explain something at the end of it, right? So probably some of those spells then changed or whatever. Okay, cool. All right, well, then I guess we're getting to the glossary. So the glossary includes games terms that have new or revised meaning. Meaning? God. Apparently these terms are having meetings. As well as terms such as creature type that aren't defined in the 2014 Player's Handbook. The terms are organized alphabetically, sure. If a term doesn't appear here, use its definition in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and when playtesting this document, do not use the rules glossary of any other Unearthed Arcana article. Okay, so pretty much they're repeating... Yeah, okay, so they're repeating everything that's different to the original rules here. Okay, cool. Ability check. 1 of 3 types of D20 tests. Sure, the rules often call for an ability check. DM can call for an ability check. When a creature attempts something other than an attack roll or saving throw that has a chance of a meaningful failure. When the outcome is uncertain and narratively interesting, the dice determine the results. Ability check is the following special rules. When you make an ability check, the rules or the DM determines whether a skill proficiency is relevant to the check. If you have a relevant skill proficiency, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. For example, if a rule refers to a strength check, acrobatics, or athletics, you can add your proficiency bonus to the check if you have acrobatics or athletics proficiency. Are we saying that acrobatics has become a strength check now? Is that what we're saying? Is acrobatics strength all of a sudden? That's weird. Okay, sure. Means you can't get it. To be fair, getting out of grapples is with a save these days, right? So, yeah, okay. Sure. Okay. Action required. Make an ability check requires you to take an action unless a rule says otherwise. Several of the named actions, such as hide and influence, include ability checks. Okay, so now they're specifically saying that making an ability check requires an action, which is probably why things like jumping and study are like actions now, because you're supposed to take an action to do those things. Honestly, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I feel like that kind of streamlines it a little bit. So I'm not against that. But it's going to be difficult for me to get used to it, I'm pretty sure. Difficulty class. DM determines the difficulty class of an ability check. Can override a DC specified in the rules. Typical difficulty class table shows the most common DCs. The default DC for a check is 15. And it is rarely worth calling for an ability check if the DC is low as 5. Unless the potential failure is narratively interesting. Hey, they're not saying that you don't have to roll for less than a 5 or more than a 30, which was one of the dumbest things that ever came out of Wizards of the Coast's mouth. Armor training. Armor training is the new name for armor proficiency, thank God. Existing rules that involves armor proficiency now applies to armor training, sure. If you wear light, medium, or heavy armor and lack armor training with that type of armor, you have disadvantage on any D20 tests that you make that involve strength or dexterity, and you cannot cast spells. If if you equip a shield, lack armor training with shields, you don't get the armor class bonus of the shield. Okay, so you don't get disadvantage on shit if you equip a shield. Okay, kind of interesting. I mean, so it's just, so pretty much equipping a shield when you don't have shield proficiency is pointless. That's what we're saying. Okay, cool. Artisan tool. Artisan tools are a category of tool with which a character can gain tool proficiency. For a list of artisan tools, see the 2014 Player's Handbook, but ignore the prices there. Those tools now cost 15 gold pieces a piece. Tools are now 15 gold pieces across the board. Okay, sure. Let's go with that. Attack action. We take an attack action, make one attack with a weapon or unarmed strike. So this is the same. Can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of this action, even if the attack is with an unarmed strike. Oh! Wait, what do you mean with equip? Equip or unequip so you can draw or stow it then? That's interesting. Okay. Move between attacks. If you move on your turn, you can use some or all of that movement to move between the attacks of this action if you have a feature such as extra attack. Yeah, sure. So that's still the same. Attack roll. The attack roll is one of 3 types of d20 tests. This is an Earth Arcana article. It uses the rules for attack rolls and critical hits found. Sure. Okay, so that means, oh, they got rid of the original, like the idea that smite doesn't crit then, and sneak attack. They got rid of it. Okay. Thank God. I don't know if that's good or bad, but eh. And does that mean they also did away with creatures not getting crits? Because I kind of understood why they got rid of creature crits, right? Like, I kind of got that. Because, like, the very first session I ever ran in D&D, I almost one-shot our bard because I crit her. And, yeah. It's kind of weird. Anyway. So I kind of get why, but then they had to replace it with something else. Like, you know, I was originally thinking that one of the things they could do technically was like, let's say they have like an ancient dragon and they have like a breath attack. If you roll a natural 20 on one of your attacks, you get to refresh your breath attack, for example. I think that would have been cool. Or like special effect, like if you roll a 20 on the attack roll, you get to attack again, or you get to do your set of attacks again. You get like kind of a little loop or whatever. I don't know. There's some cool stuff that you can do. But you know, we'll see. Technically, you can just give that as an ability if you like anyway, so, you know, who cares? Arcane spells. An arcane spell draws on the ambient magic of the multiverse. Bards, sorcerers, warlock, and wizards harness this power, as do artificers. For a partial list of arcane spells, sure. Barkskin. New. Okay. I am curious. I think Barkskin is in the original spell lists. Is it? I don't remember off the top of my head. Pretty sure it's a druid spell. I don't remember. Wait, what level is it? Second. It's a second level spell. Barkskin. There you go. So originally Barkskin was an action. Now it's a bonus. Ranged touch. Components VSM a handful of bark. Originally was a handful of oak bark. Not that anyone cares. Concentration up to an hour. So originally, you touch a within creature until the spell ends. The target's skin has a rough bark-like appearance, and the target's AC can't be less than 16, regardless of what kind of armor it is wearing. Now, you touch one willing creature to protect it with regenerating bark. Until the spell ends, the target's skin assumes a bark-like appearance, and at the start of each of the target's turns, the target gains a number of temporary hit points equal to your spellcasting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So for an hour, you give him like, at third level, this would be like with point by 5 temporary hit points every round. And you can do this as a bonus action. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Cool. Barkskin was good in like limited situations. I think it's good to like use with like wizards and stuff who don't necessarily want to cast mage armor, but or have a low dex, and then you can kind of do this. So I think Barkskin had a place in the original version. I don't know if this does. It probably does. Although, again, I don't know if like 5 to 7, 5 to 10 temporary hit points are really worth it. They are annoying. Actually, no, I do know. They are pretty annoying. Like if they get it every single turn, they become kind of and you give that to the tank, you give that to a barbarian who then resists everything. Yeah, no, that's annoying. Never mind, I'll be quiet. Also, it's only a 2nd level spell. You can't like expect this to give you 40 hit points, right? So no, this is fine. This is fine. Blind sight. If you have blind sight, you can effectively see within a specific range without relying on physical sights. With that range, excuse me. Within that range, you can effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you're blinded or in darkness. You can effectively see a hidden or invisible creature in that range. Okay. So you don't rely on sight. Sure. Same as it was. But a better explanation, because I don't think blindsight really ever got explained in the original book. Climb speed. Climb speed can be used to move on a vertical surface without expending the extra movement normally associated with climbing. Woohoo! Some creatures have the spider climb trait, which allows their climb speed to work even on the underside of horizontal surfaces. Woohoo! So you have a climbing speed. I mean, creature type. All creatures in D&D, including every player character, has a special tag in the rules that identifies the type of creature they are. Most player characters are of the humanoid type. Aberration, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, giant, humanoid, monstrosity, ooze, blend, undead. I don't think this has changed. Some rules in the game affect creatures of certain types. Cure wounds specify. The healing doesn't work on a construct. Yeah, okay. D20 test, so we know this. Encompasses the 3 main D20 rolls of the game: ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. If something in the game affects D20 tests, it affects all 3 of those rolls. Whenever a player character rolls a 1 for a D20 test, that character gains heroic inspiration. Okay, hold on. I'm going to skip ahead for a second, because they're saying heroic inspiration. Whenever you gain heroic, you can spend it to give yourself advantage on a D20 test. You do so immediately after rolling the D20. And you gain heroic inspiration if you roll a 1. But you can't have more than 1 instance of heroic inspiration. But if something gives you heroic inspiration and you already have it, you can give heroic inspiration to a player character in your group who lacks. Oh my god. So I already talked about this because I talked about it during the Bard part, where I was talking about you couldn't roll 1s on Bardic Inspiration anymore. And I talked about how I knew that there was another one. Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of this. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I am not a fan of giving someone inspiration for rolling a 1. I get why, and I think there's actually even other systems that do this. Give you like a little bit of a pick-me-up if you roll a 1. And this is to make 1s less problematic, right? Because if you roll a 1, it never feels good to roll a 1, especially if you use fumbles and stuff. Why don't I like this? This is, by the way, this has nothing to do with the 1. This has nothing to do with that idea. This has to do with the fact that I don't like inspiration as a system. Because it's like, there's a lot of characters that already get a lot of value out of inspiration. Inspiration in and of itself is such a basic system, and now you're just going to give it away, right? That's the reason that I set up the bullshit point system in Imanod, which is based off of the Benny system from Savage Worlds, which I personally like a lot more. And there's still problems with that system, don't get me wrong. But for me, I'm not a fan of this. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I get where it comes from, but I've never been a fan of inspiration. And especially the fact, because originally I was thinking like, you know, at least there's like kind of the risk reward of it, where if you roll a 1, where there's always the risk of, do I want to spend my inspiration on this roll, but you know, risk not having it later down the line? Or do I want to not spend it now, but risk rolling another 1 and giving up on my free inspiration that I could have gotten? Here's the thing. Oh, wait, no, that's not a thing, because you can choose after you roll, right? You can roll first and then say, hey, I rolled a 1. I'm going to take the inspiration. No, but it even becomes worse, because if you roll a 1 and you have inspiration, you can just give it away. So rolling a 1 is never bad, which, ironically enough, in my personal opinion, and this is going to sound really weird, in, I would say, 80% of cases, that just means that 2 is the bad number, right? And I'm saying in 80% of cases because there's a lot of not a lot, but there's a decent amount of situations where a character will roll a 2 and they'll still hit, or they'll still succeed because they have such a massive bonus. It happens, right? If you fight zombies with 8 AC and you have a +6 to your bonus, you know, the only thing that misses is a 1. But in a lot of cases, it just moves the bad number to 2. And now you just prefer rolling a 1 over a 2. Right? So I don't know. I don't think I'm much of a fan of this, but you know, I do get that a lot of players excuse me, a lot of players are gonna like this. So if they keep this, I'm not gonna fight it. I might change heroic inspiration into bullshit points though. I'm very likely at that point just gonna be like, if you roll a 1, you get a bullshit point. It would be like that at that point. Personal opinion, but anyway. Dash can make a bonus move during the current turn, which is probably just move up to your movement speed. Difficult terrain, every foot of movement in that space costs 1 extra foot, moving 5 feet through difficult terrain. So this is still the same. A space is difficult terrain for a creature if the space contains any of the following. A creature that isn't tiny. Oh. So you can move through creatures now. Huh. Okay. That's interesting. So now they are actually officially saying that you can move through creatures as long as you see it as difficult terrain. That's kind of cool, actually. I like that. I'm not going to go through all of these. DM may determine that other things count as difficult terrain, of course. Divine spells or spells for clerics and paladins. Sure. Exhausted. Okay. Oh shit, they changed exhaustion. What? While you're subjected to the exhausted condition, you experience the following effects. Levels of exhaustion. This condition is cumulative. Each time you receive it, you gain 1 level of exhaustion. You die if your exhaustion level exceeds 10. Exceeds 10, so 10 is still fine, which is funny. When you make a d20 test, you subtract your exhaustion level from the d20 roll, subtract your exhaustion level from the spell save DC of any spell you cast, and finishing a long rest removes 1 level of exhaustion. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, I get why they did this. I get why they did this, because the original exhaustion was complicated. Right? I know the table off the top of my head. I know there's a decent amount of people that don't, right? Like 1 level of exhaustion was disadvantage on ability checks, 2 levels was half speed, 3 levels was disadvantage on all d20 rolls, 4 levels was half your maximum HP, 5 levels was your movement speed drops to 0, 6 levels you die. right? Which is like a really random table. It's weird. This is a very easy and cumulative way to work with exhaustion, although it is going to completely destroy my lingering damage rules. So there is that. But anyway. No, I'm a fan of this. I think this is good. It does make exhaustion a lot weaker. But I also think that this opens up the gates to, like, you take 1d4 levels of exhaustion for creatures, which I also think is kind of cool. So, I just find it funny that it's like exceeds 10. It's not like at 10 you die. No, if it exceeds 10, it's like, okay, cool. Expertise, they've actually renamed this to a feature. That's funny. I remember reading up on Homebrew, and you weren't allowed to say you get expertise in that skill because expertise was the name of a feature. And now they're just like, expertise is a special feature that enhances. So yeah, if you get expertise, you gain it on one skill with which you have proficiency. You can never have expertise more than once. When you make an ability check with a skill proficiency in which you have expertise, your proficiency bonus is doubled, so that stays the same. Fly speed, you can move through the air. While flying, you fall if you're incapacitated or restrained. You have the hover. Trade, you can stay aloft even while incapacitated or restrained. Okay, that's kind of cool. So you can actually, like, hover. It's interesting. Arakakra, here we come. Gaming sets, I'm assuming is the same, but now all of the gaming sets are 1 gold piece apiece. I'm assuming that's just for you know, for simplicity's sake, I would assume. Grappled. Did they change anything compared to the previous version? I don't think so. Grappler can drag or carry you, but the grappler suffers the slowed condition while moving unless you're tiny or 2 more sizes smaller than the grappler. Sure. While grappled, you can make a dexterity or strength saving throw against the grapple's escape DC. Yeah, sure. So it's pretty much the same. Okay, cool. Guidance. So I already knew about this. I knew that they changed guidance. Guidance. Casting time reaction, which you take in response to you or an ally within 30 feet of you failing an ability check. Channel magical insight to the creature who failed the ability check. Creature can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the check, potentially turning it into a success. Once a creature rolls the die for the spell, the creature cannot benefit from the spell again until the creature finishes a long rest. Okay, so it's both a divine and a primal spell, and it's a reaction now, which I feel like 90% of the time you used it like that anyway. It was like, I'm gonna do something, let me guide you. It's like, yeah, exactly. So I like this as I like this as an idea. I get this. I get why they're limiting it to once. Because here's the thing that you need to think about. Adding a d4 to a number is worth a lot more than people think. Because the average number that you roll on a d4 is 2.5, right? For people who don't know statistics, it's pretty much you multiply the odds of rolling the number with the number rolled. So you have 1 times 1 out of 4, 2 times 1 out of 4. You end up with 2.5. So on average, you're going to add 2.5 to your number. Here's the thing. Advantage on average adds about 5. Adding a d4 to your check is like half advantage, which is pretty good if you think about it. So I get this, especially with the fact that they now put it on a reaction, so you don't have to like prep it. It's just like, you see something happen, let's go. So I like this. I think this is okay, because this is still a very powerful cantrip. But similarly to Bardic Inspiration, slightly weird that you're going to be hearing and seeing it happen. Like, I can't imagine you're talking to the king and there's like just this moment of like, oh, and all of a sudden everybody's like, this is not weird. I think I'm going to listen to you right now because you seem so guided. It's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about.